Today, we are very pleased to have Peter Cook, the CEO of Novatti Group, to join us. ACB code NOV. Welcome, Peter.
Good morning. Hello, Hannah.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Yes.
Peter, we know that you have over 25 years experience as a director and executive with multiple companies. Could you please introduce more about yourself to our readers?
Hello, Hannah and readers. So my background is in building businesses both in Australia and overseas, where it's really been at the interface of new technologies and building customer bases. So my background was really in telecommunications businesses, and then for the last 10 to 12 years in financial services businesses, where we bring new technologies to market and enable consumers to improve their lives by the advent of new technology. So, in an earlier time, I was a pioneer in prepaid mobile telephony, and then more recently in financial services with new sorts of digital wallets, issuing and acquiring businesses and things like that, all of which is being done under Novatti Group Limited, which is the ASX listed company.
Can you please tell us more about Novatti's business? What are Novatti's revenue streams?
So Novatti is a business-to-business payment service provider. And by that, I mean that we have built an ecosystem, a lot of infrastructure that enables us to provide payment services for other banks and financial services companies, or for end businesses and merchants. So when we talk about an ecosystem in payments, we talk about licenses, technology, and commercial partnerships. So for instance, Novatti has licenses in Australia and a number of other countries granted by regulators. We also have licenses from Visa and MasterCard, from China UnionPay, Alipay, WeChat Pay, and other companies that enable us to operate certain businesses. We've got a lot of fintech technology. And then, of course, we've got commercial operations teams in Australia, Europe, and Asia that enable us to run our businesses.
Let us talk about Novatti's competitive advantages and current situation. How does Novatti differentiate itself from other industry players?
Yeah. So, Hannah, we see that the single most important thing, if you're offering financial services, is to have relevant regulatory licenses. So everything we do is based around licenses. We see that as the core bit of infrastructure. And as I said before, we've got licenses in Australia and a number of overseas countries, and in fact are applying for more licenses all the time. So a true competitive advantage is having licenses, which take a long time to get, and not every company can get them. And then on those licenses, we have partnerships with Alipay, WeChat Pay, China UnionPay, Ripple, Stellar, Visa, MasterCard, many global companies. So by having the licenses, the partnerships and technology, we can build a sustainable competitive advantage.
As you mentioned before, Novatti has partnership with WeChat, Alipay, and Novatti established China Payments in 2018, which provides Chinese residents with a solution for Australian bills payments. How's the business going now?
So, Hannah, that has been a really great innovation. So it actually started off from one of our Chinese staff members who suggested this business idea. And what we've enabled is Chinese consumers, whether they're in China or in Australia, who've got WeChat Pay, Alipay, or UnionPay, they can pay Australian bills or, telephone bills, utility bills, and other consumption services directly from their wallets in China. So this has allowed this innovation, it's nearly a first in the world as far as we understand, makes it simple and easy and very cost effective for Chinese consumers to use their Chinese wallets to pay bills in Australia.
Can Chinese parents pay the tuition fee via China Payments?
They can. And in fact, we see that many Chinese students or their parents are paying university and school fees in Australia. they're also paying rent on apartments, they're paying other service fees. It might be telephone bills, it might be their electricity or water bills. All of those can be paid with China payments.
That's very convenient. So what's your version for China payments after 5 years?
So at the moment, we've been growing the business at about 100% year on year. We have very, very strong support from Alipay, WeChat Pay and Union Pay because they see that it's a great way to bring a service to their customers. So if we keep growing that at between 50 and 100% year on year, that could be doing $1 billion of revenue, of gross transaction value, and really helping between China and Australia for Chinese residents who have got properties or students or bills to pay in Australia.
So in the first half financial year 2022, Novatti has achieved high growth, 51% increase in sales revenue to 11.1 million. Which sector contributes the most revenue?
So our total growth rate has been growing at about 50% per year for about 4 years in a row. Wow. And at a strategic level, we aim to, in fact, at least keep that growth rate going. Interestingly, in our core business of what we call financial transaction processing, we've actually been growing at about 100% per year. Mm. So the growth rate is slightly slowed down by having we've got some historic technology businesses that have slow growth rates. But actually, if we keep growing at 50% per year, then we'll become a very large company and, of course, go through the profit barrier in the next year or so.
What do you think was the most important thing Novatti has done in the first half year?
So the most important thing is we've launched what's called an acquiring business, which is where we enable merchants to take payments from consumers with Visa card, MasterCard, Union Pay. And that will be, I would say in 2 years' time, that may well be the largest part of our business. So we've launched that. And then what's called our issuing business has also doubled in size. So we're bringing more and more services to market, and you can see the growth rate really escalating. The other thing is in the first half of last financial year, which finished in December, is we bought a company in Malaysia called ATX. And so that's our first overseas acquisition. And then ATX will increase our growth rate as well. And in fact, just talking about overseas, we've also now got a significant team operating in Europe, and we've also deployed a team in the USA selling our billing service called Immersion. So Novatti now has teams in Australia, Asia, Europe, and the US.
As you mentioned, Novatti now has branched in different countries and areas. So let us talk about the partnerships and expansion plan. Merge and acquisition and strategic investments are quite common within fintech industry. Yes. Novatti has a lot of acquisition activities as well. Last June, Novatti announced acquisition of strategic stake in Reckon Limited, ASIC code RKN. Now, Novatti has successfully acquired a 90.9% interest in Reckon. What are the reasons behind those acquisitions? How does Novatti benefit from Reckon's accounting software business?
Yes. So just quickly, Reckon provides accounting software as a SaaS, software as a service business. They have about 100,000 customers. And Novatti now owns 19.9%. So we are their largest shareholder. The reason that we have invested in the company is so that we can offer payment services to their 100,000 customers. Wow. And we are well progressed with launching services to those 100,000 customers. So over the next 3 or 4 years, we would hope to be able to provide payment services to many of those customers. So you can take a view that we now have a large addressable market of 100,000 plus customers that we can offer Novatti payment services to. The other thing which is very good is that Reckon is a very profitable company, and we receive at the moment over $1 million a year in dividends just by being an investor in that company.
That's a very good investment.
Hmm.
From your perspective, what future we may see in global B2B payments ecosystem? How do you see the future opportunities?
In future B2B payments, we see a lot will be based around blockchain networks and a drive for greater integration between countries and businesses between countries. So for instance, between Australia and China, there is a lot of trade, and we see that that trade will continue to grow. People want to be able to pay, each business wants to be able to pay the other business efficiently. Novatti's method of dealing or looking at this innovation in the future is that we're very involved in a number of blockchain strategies. And in fact, we will be deploying a stable coin, which could work, for instance, with the China central bank digital currency. So we'll be deploying stable coin services. We're also doing other modern payment services and trying to work very closely with Chinese payment companies. And of course, we're already doing that with UnionPay, Alipay, and WeChat Pay.
Can you please introduce more information about the ecosystem that Novatti is building? Could you describe it in different aspects like technology, license, partnership, and the Novatti's team?
Okay, so just going back to how we think about infrastructure. If you're a manufacturing company, you think about infrastructure as the assembly lines and all of the equipment you need to manufacture. As a payments company, infrastructure is about your ability to work with other payments companies and banks and the customers that are going to use your service. So as I've said earlier, the first part of how we think about infrastructure is being licensed. Then we build a lot of technology. So we've got a number of very modern, innovative technology platforms. And then, of course, we use our status as a public listed company with licenses to get agreements with companies such as WeChat Pay and Alipay, UnionPay and others. So Novatti is now one of the major companies in Australia with global partnerships. So with these global partnerships, there are companies that want to do business. We have the right licenses and technology, and then we can service those companies with our infrastructure.
Thank you. Let us talk about the future vision, because when we invest in your company, we invest in the future of the company. Novatti aimed at creating Australia's leading migrant bank in 2019. 3 years later, is this still the goal for Novatti?
Yeah, so a few things there. Let's just look at Novatti and the payments business. We've been growing at about 50% per annum, and we should become cash flow positive in about a year to 18 months' time. That is the plan, and become a very large payments company with a global footprint, which we've already discussed. We've also applied for a bank license in Australia, and we think we are very close to being issued that bank license. With the bank license, our business plan is about providing services for migrants and businesses and people that are coming to Australia or potentially have relationships in Australia and maybe they're in another country. But we'll be using our Australian bank license to provide banking services for people that have relationships with Australia. So it'll be a digital bank, it'll be very innovative, and it'll be focused on servicing, for instance, people from China who've got relatives or businesses in Australia or want to come to Australia.
Novatti's banking business remains at the final stage to get approval. If Novatti gets banking license this year, what does it mean for Novatti?
If we get the banking license this year, which I think is highly likely, then it will, first of all, I think it'll mean in a share market sense, the company will be, new investors will look at the company and take a very positive view on the company, because we've done a very difficult thing as a public listed company of gaining one of these bank licenses. It will also allow us to deploy new services and bring on many, many new customers to use our banking services. And of course, the bank will become a very profitable business within 2 or 3 years itself as well.
Let us go back to talk about partnerships more, as Novatti is getting banking license soon, and Novatti formed partnerships with global payments leaders. What do those partnerships mean for Novatti, and how can Novatti leverage its ecosystem and generate revenue from the partnerships?
So the global partnerships, in the end, mean that you're nearly an important player in the payments ecosystem. Let me give you an example. Novatti has a regulatory license in New Zealand to be an issuer, to issue cards. We have a partnership with Visa in New Zealand. And then Afterpay, the buy now, pay later company, wants to issue virtual Visa cards in New Zealand. So Afterpay contracted with Novatti to do that issuing for them. So essentially the partnership, so the license in New Zealand plus the global partnership with Visa then brought us a major company such as Afterpay to be a client in New Zealand. At the same time in Australia, we have a partnership with Ripple, the blockchain company. And because of that partnership, we've been able to get partnerships with companies in a number of Asian countries who want to work with Ripple and then Novatti as a result. So the global partnerships, in the end, bring business to us.
Thank you, Peter. From your personal perspective, can you tell us a brief picture of Novatti in 5 years?
In 5 years' time, I would hope that Novatti is a multi-billion-dollar company with extensive operational footprint around the world, and that we are one of the major payment companies in the world.
We are looking forward to seeing that. So this is the end of this interview. Thank you so much for your time today, Peter.
Hey, Hannah, thank you.